think I'm ready now.
Okay. All right. Welcome to the Elk Season Podcast. We are the Chambers Brothers. My name's Harold.
I'm David.
And today on the Elk Season Podcast,
We're going to talk about individuals who have inappropriate interactions with wildlife. Don't get ahead of yourself here. It's not what you think.
Don't be nasty.
We're also going to be talking about, having opportunities to see that. So there's, having conservation is a big part of what we talk about. So
Always.
Having access is going to be there. Wolves are on the list. We also have wolves are on the list. So I don't know why that makes me laugh. But then you also have
funny.
Unique interactions with wildlife. Again, don't get ahead of us there. Don't be nasty.
There's a few important things we need to talk about. Some new laws that came into effect in Idaho.
And now I'm
this week.
Now here's my caveat. We didn't have a chance to really talk about this before. You said it was hearsay through other people and not necessarily confirmed. Now I'm not saying that it's not there, but I'm hesitant about these new laws until I see it. But it's not that I'm.
You didn't Google it right then and there?
I couldn't find it. The way I went about it in your defense, the way I went about searching it, it was.
You went to the Fish and Game app, didn't you?
Yeah, and I thought maybe Fish and Game would have something more upfront about it, but it wasn't there. But on that regard, I'm only reserved because I haven't had a
right
a confirmation.
Don't take my word for it. Don't take my word for it. Google everything I say. Don't trust
anytime you hear something, the onus is on you.
It really is.
To make sure that you have due diligence on making sure you understand wholly what is expected, what are the laws, what are the regs. Anyway, but
always cite your source. And so if your conversation starts with, you know what, this is true, I heard this from a guy in a bar, maybe we should think a different source.
But on that note, I'm intrigued by these laws, and they sound plausible. They sound realistic. I'm kind of excited to.
So the laws I read for here in Idaho are, I think both laws passed unanimously, 63-0 in the Idaho State House, for mechanical broadheads and for lighted knocks. Which I don't know why lighted knocks were illegal.
Well,
but. Or not allowed. I don't know. But
my thought is that it had to do with, the long-standing law in Idaho that you could not have any sort of
artificial light,
electronic device of any kind attached to your bow. And so, to me, it was It seemed to fall under that umbrella. And so I'm curious about the law. How did they tweak it to allow for that? It's knocks. It's not something that's affixed to your bow, so it might be. I don't know.
Right. I'd like to see what the law says.
Because what is it? Early on, I learned. You have those the sights that have the little light that you can screw into the hole.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was cool, but that's illegal. So I've always just, taken that off and given it to the kids, and they tend to run around with it, play with it, and lose it. And so, but did the law open the door for something like that? I don't know that that's as necessary. I think the lighted knocks, I think, have a very practical application. What was the other part of the law?
Mechanical broadheads.
Mechanical broadheads.
So things that can fly, that aren't affected by the wind as much, and so they'll fly a little bit further and a little bit straighter until they impact the animal, and then the broadhead opens.
Yeah, and I think the concern, I remember coming up in my hunter's ed, the conversation we had was that if that mechanical device fails, I think was always the concern that it's going to cause more suffering for the animal. So I don't know that I'm a big fan of the expandable broadheads, because if for some reason if somebody has poor maintenance on their broadheads, moisture gets in there, it gets rusted clothes, and even if it hits, it's just going to get in there and it's not going to fully cause damage in the way that you need to have a more ethical harvest.
Right.
So that's my only reservation on that one. I wonder though if technology is advanced enough to where that's less likely.
I don't know. I've never used since traditional broadheads are so incredibly lethal.
Why
Holy jeez.
Yeah.
You need something more lethal than that?
Is it more lethal?
I don't know.
So to me, if the blades expand, it's going to have the same lethality as anything else. It's just that it's going to have
it's going to be moving faster.
Less resistance. So,
and it can come from a greater distance. So maybe that's part of it. So one of the guys I talked to, I heard this from a guy at the gym.
citing your source. I appreciate it.
You gotta be pulling at least 80 pounds if you want to use a mechanical broadhead. I don't know if that's true, but I know I'm not pulling 80 pounds.
So that kind of falls back into what I was saying. Because if you're going to use a mechanical broadhead, you have to have more weight behind it, because in order for that device to do what it needs to do at the distances, you have to have a certain protocol in order for that mechanism to work right. So I don't know that I'm sold on mechanical broadheads. Of course, I'll keep an open mind.
Yeah.
No
I
judgment.
don't know.
I just don't know.
I'm patient. What I have already can't kill an elk. So why do I need new stuff that can't kill an elk? Right? If I can't hit it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what kind of broadhead I'm not using on an elk. So, anyways, real quick, I know we got real serious there for a second. I was gone last week. We didn't have an Elk Season podcast last week. I was in Helena, Montana, in my ancestral home ground, and I picked up an 8-pack of cold smoke. And so my brother and I are enjoying a delicious cold smoke.
Oh,
I say it's the official beer of Elk Season, but it's out of Missoula, Montana, right there at Hellgate Canyon.
Oh, delicious.
And it is, it's a great beer. It's a great beer.
It's a good Scottish ale. I don't know. Just it's hard to beat a Scotch ale.
There's another beer in Montana that I love for the summertime. It's called Prickly Pear Ale.
Oh, Prickly Pear. That's that Lewis and Clark Brewing.
It's from Lewis and Clark Brewery in Helena. And I don't know if, and a lot of people don't know this. I read a book, I think it was My 60 Years on the Plains, but this before it was called the Helena Valley, it was called the Prickly Pear Valley.
Oh, okay. So I think you've told me that.
They had to have a name for it, and it was just called the Prickly Pear Valley. And Prickly Bear Creek comes out of the Elkhorn Mountains because elk have horns.
Elk what?
I know.
Elk what?
I know. It's the Elkhorn Mountains.
Hey, look, I got a bag that says Horn Hunter. I just wanted to.
I got straight up clothing that show antlers and say horn.
Yeah, and I just wanted a vessel to carry crap around hunting, and you never let me live that down. And thank you for that.
You're welcome. Plenty of things I never lived down to. Anyway,
do you want me to start? I'm just kidding.
It has already started. It has already started. So anyways, I'm enjoying some cold smoke.
Delicious. I'll drink to that.
So, and I actually had some on tap I had a great experience at a restaurant. And when you go to Montana, I know Montana, I know the spots, I know the restaurants, and the restaurants are really where diversity is. That's where diversity lives for a community, is in its restaurants.
Yeah.
And if you want a diverse community restaurant experience, you can't go to Outback Steakhouse.
No.
Those kids are trained by corporate.
Right.
They have a dress code.
Yeah.
And policies. And specials.
So here, I think the standing rule that I've finally come around to, and I really appreciate, is that if we're on vacation somewhere, if we're out of town, food has to come from somewhere you couldn't get in your hometown.
Yeah.
And so we did that when we went to Bruno a few weeks ago. I'm pretty sure I got a small case of food poisoning from that experience. I thought it was something else, but when I thought about it, I put the pieces together. I'm pretty sure I had a small case of food poisoning. But at the same time, it was a unique experience. That's
part of the experience. Yeah.
Sadly.
I mean, food is pretty much the same anywhere you go.
Right.
If you go to Outback or Applebee's or this steakhouse down the road, pretty much it's just food. But the package they wrap it in, the experience you have while you're eating can really make or break that dining experience. And all civilization has revolved around the production of food since the beginning of time. And so there's a few restaurants in Helena I wanted to hit. One was called the Legal Tender.
Okay.
We did not make it there. It's in Clancy. I think they got 30 inches of snow like this week.
Wow.
Yeah, so we got out of there before the snow came.
Good.
The other one was called the Grub Steak. Are you familiar with the Grub Steak?
But it sounds grubby and steaky, and I like it.
The Grub Steak restaurant. And both of these places have dirt parking lots.
Oh, sweet.
Oh,
that makes it better.
And they are right off I-15.
That's like that place in Hollister here south of Twin Falls, right off Highway 93.
Yeah. What's the name of that? We used to be Boda's Bar, didn't it?
Yeah.
Now it's something else?
Yeah, but it's...
Oh, yeah, it's epic. It's epic. And that's where you want to go to eat. And so there's a bar on one side and a restaurant on the other. It's a bar restaurant combo. And both of these places, the legal tender and the Grub Steak, are the same. And then there's the place called Marysville House out in Marysville, Montana.
Marysville. I keep forgetting about Marysville because it's the old ghost. Is it a ghost town or old mining area?
It's pretty much empty. There's a really good restaurant there, and it's on the way to the Great Divide ski area.
I think there's a Marysville, Idaho, too.
There is.
So I was confused when I moved here because people were like, we're going to Marysville. I'm like, Montana? No. Anyway,
yeah, so there's Marysville House, and I would guess seating is somewhere south of 40.
Okay.
It's not big.
So no major family reunions, at least for our family.
But people have carved their name into the wall with knives for generations.
Oh.
And it's a beautiful place.
Talk about bucket list item.
I mean, the bathroom, the hot water didn't work.
Yeah.
And the paper towels were just a roll of paper towels on a regular paper towel holder across from the toilet. So it's not corporate. It's so nice to go out and experience this not corporate. So we go to the Grub Steak. And the Grub Steak restaurant, the term Grub Steak has nothing to do with grub or steak.
Dang it.
I don't know if you knew that.
Well, now I'm disappointed because it sounded grubby and steaky. And
Helena's in gold country.
Bait and switch, man.
Helena's in gold country, and anytime you're in gold and gold claim country, somebody might come to you. Let's say you hit it kind of big.
Sure.
Somebody would come to you and say, "Hey, man, I panned this out. I need a little bit of money to develop it. Can you grub steak me?" And they're looking to grub up a steak in my interest.
Gotcha.
And so some guys who hit it big would just be like, "Yeah, I'll give you some money, give you some money, give you some money. I only need one of them to pay off,
right?
And I'll get paid back for all of it." But that was sort of what a grub steak was. So, anyways, great experience. I mean, all these kids had to have had jobs from relatives who owned it. We walk up to the host. It was just great. I loved it. It's so not corporate. Don't change anything. It's so not corporate. We walked up, and this kid, got to be 17 or 18, with genuine curiosity in his voice. Like, "Can I help you?" Like, "We're here to eat. We're a family of 4. Like, yeah, we were like," and he's like, "Oh," like he just figured it out. "Oh, yeah, come on in." And he guides us back and sits us at a table. Above the table, there is a window mount air conditioner.
Okay.
And I mean, it's in fine shape. It's a nice restaurant, and it's been there for a long time. I still can't believe they haven't paved the parking lot, and I'm glad they haven't. I love it. But some of the sealing for this air conditioner was just packaging tape.
Yeah.
So that's how it was like sealed in there. It's like, it's okay. If it's sealed tight, it doesn't matter. If it worked, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I guess these guys have a really good breakfast too.
Okay.
So one of the waitresses was wearing some Daisy Duke cutoffs.
Okay.
One of the waiters had to have been like just turned 14.
Okay.
And was trying to dress nice, but it didn't fit him very well because nothing does when you're 14.
Right. Correct.
And he was wearing Birkenstock sandals with socks. So open-toed shoes with socks.
Nice.
I know. I loved it.
You don't get this at the Texas Roadhouse. I'm just saying.
You don't get this great experience anywhere that isn't just full of locals. I mean, real locals. And our waitress, I'm like, it's been a long time since I've been here. What's the special?
Sure.
Yeah, we don't really have a special. We don't really have specials. I'd say. Well, what's everybody eat when they come here? Like, oh, I'm looking forward to this. I like this.
Great.
Nothing. We got nothing from her. Then my daughter asked about dessert.
Yeah.
She's all about that nice restaurant dessert. And because it wasn't on the menu. And the waitress goes, "Yeah, we don't really do dessert. We made some brownies today."
That's awesome.
So I'm telling you, man, that was a fantastic experience. The Grub Steak, it's right off of I-15. Both the Grub Steak,
all right,
and it's just one exit and a turn, and you're there in a dirt parking lot. Both the Grub Steak and the Legal Tender. Legal Tender's out in Clancy, about the same distance away from Helena, south, and then the Grub Steak's north.
Very cool.
But it was fun. It was fun to be back in the hometown. Get some cold smoke. I'm sure I'll be back. I know I'm going back this summer. Our family reunion is up in Montana this summer. So looking forward to it. Anyways, that's why we weren't here last week, because I was
here. And in case you want to watch that, I'm just kidding. I didn't record anything,
but man, you should have. Also, before we get started, I do want to talk about. I told you I had an assignment for you.
Yes, yeah.
There is. I read this book. I finished the book by John Coulter. John Coulter was a member of the Corps of Discovery with Lewis and Clark, and I think he was the 4th or 5th person that even signed up. And as they went along this journey, it turns out he was just really good at hunting. Really good. And so those were the assignments he got, which were the assignments he wanted.
Okay.
And there's this emotion. Here's the song for Elk Season the musical. There's an emotion during Elk Season when the weather's crappy, when you're tired, you haven't seen any game, and you're just homesick.
Mm-hmm.
You're just homesick. Tomorrow could be the greatest day of your life, but right now you do anything to go home.
Okay. Oh, I've been there.
Yes.
Sadly, more often than not, have chosen home. I do not belong here. I'm not worthy.
You feel like that. That's not true. Every time I felt like going home, if I went home,
There was that one time when I dropped dinner in the tent because I was so tired.
I'm like, we might be done hunting. This weekend's over.
It was
bad.
That was one of the most
upsetting.
That was one of those, what you're describing now, that's one of those nights that definitely meets that mark.
So if you're looking for a song to write about being homesick, because here's John Coulter on the Lewis and Clark expedition. And what was that, like 28 months or 18 months? It was a long, long time. They're getting back down to the river, and he's leaving the mountains behind. And it's been 2 years. It's been more than 2 years.
And I'm mad after a day.
And he's like, I'm just not ready to go back to civilization. And he wasn't.
Wow.
He wanted to go back. And so when he met some trappers going up, and they were looking for a guide, and he's like, yeah, I am really not looking forward to going back to St. Louis. All those people back in 1806, no thanks. And he wanted to go back. Ended up being neighbors with Daniel Boone later in life.
Weird.
Daniel Boone, kept moving west. Daniel Boone's philosophy was, if your closest neighbor's a 2 days ride, it's time to move. So he didn't like close neighbors, and he kept moving from the Cumberland Gap out east, kept moving west every time his neighbors got too close, and ended up being neighbors with John Coulter out west, I think in Kansas or Colorado. Maybe it was Wyoming.
What happened when he got to the West Coast and ran out of land?
Oh, he died before he got there. He died. And really there's enough open space even now.
Right.
Probably for Daniel Boone. But so there's your assignment.
Right.
Write a song about that emotion of being homesick. And knowing you're doing what you love, what you thought about doing all year long, and knowing tomorrow could be the greatest day of your elk hunting life. But in the moment, you're like, I just want to go home.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's an emotion. And this emotion was not very strong in John Coulter.
Okay.
I mean, he was captured by a native tribe. His buddy was riddled with bullets. They tried to capture him. They tried to capture him both. And they got John Coulter. They stripped him naked. They see his buddy in the canoe, and they go, tell your buddy to get over here. And his buddy's like, I'm not going like that, but I'll take one of them with me. And he fired, and he killed one of them, and they just tore loose, and they just filled him so full of lead. Then they take John Coulter, and they strip him naked, and they make him run. And he runs. This story was old last time I told it to you.
Right.
Now it's fresh and it's different. Because there was a guy behind him that was carrying a blanket and a spear. I don't know why he had a blanket on him or with him.
Yeah, okay.
But he had a blanket and a spear, and he was running after John Coulter. He was 100% naked. John Coulter, there was only one really close pursuer at that time. And this is all in Three Forks. all in
Okay.
the Bozeman Valley, in that Three Forks area between the Jefferson and the Madison River. Yeah, I think Jefferson and Madison. The Gallatin's a little bit further east. But he's so he stops and he's like, you don't have to kill me. You don't do this. And the native tried to kill him. He quickly countered him, and the worm had turned. And the Native American was begging for his life.
Wow.
And John Coulter did not oblige him. He killed him. He took his spear, took his blanket, and ran to the river where he found a beaver lodge, and he jumped into the beaver lodge.
Oh, yeah.
And he hid in the beaver lodge. But here's what I didn't know about John Coulter hiding in a beaver lodge. It wasn't very long before the rest of the Native Americans arrived looking to kill this guy. And they're standing on top of the beaver lodge. And he can hear them talking about, maybe look over here, maybe look over here. They leave, and he waits. 2 hours later, they come back thinking, we couldn't have lost his trail. He's got to be around here somewhere. And they're looking for him again. And he waits until they leave, and he thought at any moment they were going to tear open that beaver lodge and peel him out of there. But they never did.
Wow. I didn't realize a man could fit in a beaver lodge.
I didn't either. I guess when you're desperate, when you know what's waiting for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd be surprised.
I know where some beaver lodges are, and now I have a weird curiosity.
Yeah.
And so I think I need some flippers, a snorkel, and
and an oxygen tank, and maybe just one of those electronic cameras to go scope it out. We'll just see.
I want to go live there.
And anyways, he makes his escape through some mountain pass in the middle of winter, and he's half starved when he finally arrives. And still, he's like, I'm not ready to go back yet.
It happens.
He really, really had a craving to just be out in the wilderness, and he escaped death in that valley 2 more times right after that.
Oh wow!
In almost the same area, because I think it was either the Crow or the Blackfeet Native American tribe that occupied that area. And anyways, fantastic book. But I think about my own homesickness during just elk season.
Yeah.
And I think about this guy out here for years on end. I'm not ready to go back. And I wish I could be that guy.
So capture that emotion and help.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. There you go.
We'll see.
There's your assignment. We'll keep sipping beer. We'll start on our list.
Yeah, we're gonna go to conservation news, and it's. I hope I can remember what it was that crossed my mind, because I looked at these before you got over here.
Yeah.
And one of them made me go, okay. And I don't remember exactly what the thought was, so I'm hoping the thought comes back.
Okay.
But we're going to start off in the world of, Grizzly Bear. And so there was eastern Idaho. Ashton is right there on the border of Yellowstone, really.
Yeah, really close. I would consider Ashton to be in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem.
And fun fact, and I'm sure you know this, our grandfather on our father's side grew up in Ashton.
Yeah.
And so on. And it's funny because in his memoir, he talks about, I think it was his memoir, he talked about working for an eventual potato conglomerate, because of the way the potatoes grew. And so he dated somebody or knew somebody growing up, and they went on to be this big potato farmer producer. And he went in the military and all that, but it was just kind of have an interesting history there. So
there's some interesting notes from Grandpa's diary. You know, there's the famous story where he threw the pitchfork at the pig.
Yeah.
And got it stuck in the pig. They went to get hay in the wintertime.
Yeah.
That trip was a 2-hour sleigh ride one way.
Wow.
That's my grandfather.
Yeah.
A 2-hour sleigh ride. I can't even fathom the distance I could travel in 2 hours now. It's bizarre.
Right.
Driving to Helena is an afternoon.
Yeah.
Not an all-day thing anymore.
Yeah. So anyway, in Ashton, a man or men, a couple guys are sentenced for unlawful killing of grizzly bear.
Yeah. Guys out in the woods hunting in or near Ashton should and probably did. I don't want to say that they definitely knew, but if you're hunting in around the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, you should be aware
of grizzly.
In every big game book I've ever encountered, which includes Montana and Idaho, There's very, very important and distinct descriptions between black bear and grizzly, and they tell you to know the difference.
When my oldest boy took hunter's safety, you know, they talked very specifically about the difference between black bear and grizzly bear in that class. And so, you know, from ear features to the hump feature, the size, of course, is a big one.
Yeah, size and tracks and if you get close enough, I think a grizzly bear has got an extra molar. And
you might see that a little bit late, but yes, there might be an extra molar. Yeah. Definitely some canines in there. So, you know, it comes down to being a good steward of the land and the animals we share. And so being more important, there's moments that, you know, there are moments to be human, but sometimes we step across those moments, and that's, I think this is one of those cases where they just weren't paying enough attention, or maybe they just got caught up in some sort of buck fever like emotion, like that's a grizzly, and we were afraid. So anyway,
there was a guy. So I'm reading a book right now about it's called Decade of the Wolf, and it's about a wolf biologist who spent time studying wolves on Isle Royale. I know I talked to you about Isle Royale.
Okay.
It's a famous study about wolf and moose populations on Isle Royale.
Was that Never Cry Wolf?
No.
That's a different study.
Yeah, that was Alaska. That was actually supposed to be for caribou.
Yeah,
he was there to study caribou,
right.
and the caribou migrations. But this was wolf and moose relationship. And when the wolf population went down, the moose population went up. And when the wolf population went up, the moose population went down. And when the moose population was down, then wolves would starve and the wolf population would go down. So it's a very long longitudinal study. Yeah. And this guy was part of it. And he gets to be part of it when he comes out west, when wolves are finally reintroduced out west. So in Isle Royale, I think it's in Michigan. It's an island way north, real close by Canada. But it's a very famous study. So they do this, and you were, where were we?
Yeah,
I know.
I forgot what started the thread, other than just talking about, you know, the wolves.
The wolves. It was poachers. Yeah. It was the idea of poachers.
Poaching.
So in Idaho, growing up in Montana and Idaho during the wolf reintroduction program, I talked to a lot of guys who I did not agree with. Most of them I did not agree with, who had a shoot, shovel, and shut up policy.
Gotcha.
And they swore they lived by it. They go, you shoot one, you see a wolf, you shoot it, you bury it, and you don't talk about it. And I'm like, that's a bunch of braggart BS. I really don't think. Yeah.
I don't know. I think to a degree maybe, but I think there are definitely some of those attitudes out there.
So,
I mean, that could be implicated in a future conservation.
So I'm reading this book.
Yeah.
And they estimated 30 to 40% of wolf kills were poaching.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot. 30, 40%. Yeah. It's a huge amount. It still didn't stop them. It still didn't stop the wolves from coming back.
Yeah. And the wolves are back. And if we transition now to Oregon, when we think about poaching, we're not sure what's going on here, but 11 dead wolves since last year in Oregon. And Oregon, is it Oregon Fish, Wildlife, and Parks? It should be.
I have no idea.
Anyway, those good folks in Oregon are trying to find answers. So there's an $80,000 reward if it can lead to the answer as to why these wolves are disappearing.
Yeah.
So, Oregon's a unique state. And I'm not sure about Washington. We don't hear much about Washington and hunting in Washington. Very similarly sized states.
Yeah.
I don't know what the population density is.
They're relative. They're relative to each other. They're about the same size. But there's some really good hunting and great elk opportunities in both Washington.
Yeah.
And they both have the coastal range. And they both have the Cascade Range and the Coastal Range. So there's a lot of similarities.
I think there's a lot of similarity. But back to Oregon, though, it just seems... I don't know where I was going. Today's the day where threads start and don't finish.
They have a little bit more...
I was looking at that earlier, wondering if it looked correct. Your microphone has fallen off.
And I can't get up. It's all right. Just say something interesting.
So, something interesting. So here's a thought that I had. So actually, the thought came back to me in terms of what I was thinking earlier. And now it kind of goes into the political world, but it is this: if Oregon is having an issue with wolf management, I can't help but wonder if this has something to do with certain attitudes in Oregon. Some of you, one of you, I don't know who's listening, but some people might be listening. You're not all the way down in that, so you need to. So there's a.
Oh, right here.
Yeah. Anyway,
well, that's a big 10-4, little buddy. Okay.
So,
gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome. So there's this big. Where I'm going with this, there's a push with a bunch of counties in Oregon wanting to become part of Idaho, and they're calling it the Greater Idaho Movement.
Yeah.
And here's my concern. Now, I understand that there's these high population densities in Oregon that are sort of superseding rural area
voting
contribution to what the state has to say. And I would argue that although I can appreciate your desire to be part of a state that aligns with your values,
right,
I'm not against that, but at the same time, I worry that you're taking your own voice away from a state that could, if you want to have more balanced opportunities, leaving isn't the answer.
Right.
And so again, kind of a loose thread related to this wolf situation in Oregon, but I can't help but wonder if there's somewhere some connection to all of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, there's wolf poaching going on in Oregon. And I'm telling you, I believe it's a shoot, shovel, and shut up policy.
Yeah.
That a lot of guys out west have had for a long time. For a long time. But it's not going to stop them. It's a bummer for you.
The next story, the first time I ever came across this, it came across a show I watch. It's on. You can stream it on Amazon. It's called Fatal Attractions.
Yes, you've talked about it many times.
And one of the episodes had this cute old lady living on the coast of Oregon.
Yeah.
And she was feeding black bears. And there's so many black bears on the Oregon coast.
Man.
So weird history. I had an extended family member who lived on the Oregon coast, worked for a small farm, dealing with wasabi of all things, actually. So it's the Asian or Japanese horseradish, basically. It's kind of the same thing. I don't know. But anyway, but they would always have the black bears coming into their property and stuff like that. So it was kind of crazy. But in this particular episode of Fatal Attractions, this old lady is feeding the bears. She keeps getting warned, stop it. She keeps getting fined, stop it. And eventually she's found dead because one of the bears reached up through her railings and was able to get her and kill her. She was an old lady.
Yeah.
So don't feed the bears. So part of where this, back to the story, it has to do with, look, birds are wild birds, right? They're going to go find food. You don't have to feed them.
Right.
Now, I get it in our desire to connect with nature and to feel
we want to see
connected.
them. We like seeing the animals.
It's nice, but having a bird feeder has correlated with bears being more
habituated.
Habituated to your presence, and it leads to more encounters and more concerns, like lady in show. So, be cautious.
Yeah, and I saw something similar on TikTok this week. Some lady in Alaska and a cute moose, and she says, "I know I'm not supposed to do this," but she says his name. I don't know his name, Roger or whatever. They name the animals. Here you go, Roger, and she gets a carrot out for him. And feeds him a carrot.
Right.
Okay. What happens when Roger's in rut?
Yeah.
That is, according to Les Stroud.
Yeah. That's
a rutting moose is the most dangerous animal in the fall in North America.
I wouldn't doubt it.
And I don't doubt it. The most dangerous animal in Africa is a hippo.
Somewhere I've got a really grainy video of two bulls going after each other over some cows.
Yeah.
Up on Summit Creek Road, north.
And they are big and powerful, and they know it. And if they don't like the way you look, man, they're going to try to clear you out.
Yeah.
And Les Stroud, there's a story on YouTube where he tells his most terrifying experience, and it's about a moose encounter.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever heard it.
I think I have. Yeah.
Oh, jeez. So, hey, one thing that's also going to perpetuate these animal encounters is social media.
Yeah.
Because not only was she on TikTok, but she had 21,000 people liking the video.
Yeah.
So now, let's move to a place. Let's put out some food. Let's be the TikTok star. Let's be famous on the Instagram.
One of the most impressionable ideas that I learned while coming up the ranks in my college education was the idea of anthropomorphizing.
Yeah.
And we love anthropomorphizing. We love animals who talk. We love attributing human qualities to our animal friends. But at the end of the day, what the suggestion was that we cannot allow for that because we are a unique species compared to the animal kingdom. We really are. It's great. It's good to have emotions and feelings for your pet dog, your cat, and chickens or whatever. But at the end of the day, what's that line that Joker gives in The Dark Knight? Let's see how loyal you're. We're gonna find out how loyal a hungry dog really is.
Yeah,
and that's alluding to that idea. The reality at the end of the day is, if
you're a food source,
you're a food source.
Yeah,
and so sorry to break it to you. I love my dog as much as anybody else, but you know what? And I've given her permission. If I should die and she needs food and she's alive,
okay.
Sorry, that's really weird, morbid, and kind of.
No, well, what's another solution? Because I was in Helena this week.
Yeah.
And there were deer in town.
Wow.
Okay.
And
we saw them in two different places. And they were right next to the road. I mean, between our house and Kmart. Yeah. Where we grew up in Kmart. I mean,
I don't remember seeing deer down there.
By the railroad tracks.
Okay.
Oh, weird. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. And so why are they there? And is there a better response? If I was a kid and I'd be like, oh my gosh, there's deer.
Yeah.
Let's get a slingshot. Let's go. But I would. I'd be like, let's hit the deer. It'd be fun. It's good practice. Is that a better response to wildlife than let's get him a carrot?
So you have a really interesting conundrum there because people would say, "Oh, you're being insensitive and cruel towards the animal."
Yeah.
On both sides,
I'm doing that animal a favor.
But
I think.
But the same thing we talked about with bears in the woods. You make yourself big, you make yourself noticeable, you make sure that they stay afraid of humans, and that's what those deer are lacking. So I kind of lean towards the unethical. Now I wouldn't. I know.
Which one's more unethical?
Blowhorn. Get a blowhorn, not a slingshot. Make it noisy and uncomfortable that way. But it's still, whether it's auditorily uncomfortable or you get a little poke on the rib cage because somebody slung a little pebble at you. But it's tough.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's. You go out there with a piece of food and everybody loves you. You go out there with a slingshot and people think you're Hitler.
Yeah.
And yet I would disagree with giving him food. If you had to pick one of those, I would say hit him with a slingshot.
Yeah.
If you had to pick.
So
anyway,
to take us a little farther east, actually, into Wyoming. So Wyoming has had some success with their wolf population.
Yeah.
So continuing the wolf conversation here. A 5-year anniversary of the removal of the gray wolves from the list of species federally protected. And so people are saying, we've earned this. This is good. But there's this argument to end or to should you end federal wolf oversight or have permanent protection? There's that debate that's going on. And I think it comes down, for me, the conversations we've had is always about active management. You've got to have it locally sourced.
Right.
And
right.
I'm
locally and responsibly.
Right.
Right.
I'm okay with the federal government saying, consider these things, but at the end of the day, the state needs to make the choice on what they feel is in their best interest.
Right. Maybe the feds say, the biological standard is you need a minimum of this many. How many you manage within that window is fine with us. But here's the point. Because we've had this law. They've been declassified. They've been off the endangered species list for 5 years. And there's so many wolves still, they have to hire trappers and pay them money for every wolf.
Yeah.
Because there's so many. So here's the thing. When wolves were first going to be reintroduced, one side was like, they're going to kill every livestock that ever existed.
Right.
And the other side was like, oh, they're a beautiful part of nature. We must love them. And that same side, when they went to delist, they say, if you delist these, they're going to kill every last wolf that exists. Don't delist them. And here we have a perfect example of, well, we delisted 5 years ago.
And
there's
still
too
here.
many.
Yeah.
There's so many.
Well,
we have to pay people to kill them.
Well, that's not the Wyoming story. The Wyoming story
Right.
is just saying we have the success. It's the follow-up story where in Montana, that's the problem.
Right.
And that takes us to where you're speaking in terms of we have the liberal approach to these wolves and management, but now because not enough of our sportsmen are doing it,
Right.
we have to hire out. And
Right.
and everybody does it differently. Idaho got in hot
Yeah.
water because they were just sending helicopters out and taking them out, last few years. And
Yeah.
again, it may not be sightly and it might not be comfortable for everybody. But the reality is, active management has to happen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we have to do something. We have to do something. And this new book that I'm reading called The Decade of the Wolf talks about wolves as a keystone species, and I'm sure I'll talk more about it. But when you have wolves are very territorial. They kill a lot of coyotes. A coyote's favorite food is pronghorn babies.
oh
So what happens when wolves come back? Wolves don't like pronghorn. They're going to waste their time chasing a small meal like that. and so now that population is increasing, and there's so many obvious connections like that. And they talk about the food web in that book. This researcher talks about the food web and how it is affecting everything. The willows, how the willows are growing back, but not just the willows. It's not just protecting the rivers. It's not just changing the course of the river, but because willows are so important for beaver.
Yeah.
The beaver are coming back.
Yeah.
The beaver couldn't come back in places.
Right.
Because the elk were trampling all the willows.
Yeah, that was the studies out of
Yeah.
Yellowstone that
Yeah.
demonstrated the reintroduction of wolves. And that was,
This is one of those scientists.
yeah,
that's studying
it
this.
was
Yeah.
2009 when I came
Yeah.
across that. And I was appreciating, and I told you how I had an acquaintance in a class that was like, I wanted to like you, but I'm like, look,
That's okay. Yeah.
you don't have to hate me.
So, anyways, yeah, it's a great book, and the strings it pulls in the web of life
Yeah.
are very surprising and very helpful to, I believe,
So-
all sportsmen.
I think as much as we encourage each other, we encourage anyone else who might hear this to just keep an open mind. And
Please,
it's
yeah.
okay to be flexible, even if you're uncomfortable with the way that it might flex.
Yeah.
I think that's just how we have to manage.
Yeah,
our-
it's where the pendulum is swinging.
yeah.
So we'll just, don't get too high, don't get too low. Just let this pendulum swing back and forth and try to stay out of its way.
Moving from Wyoming down south to Colorado here, we have Colorado's big game hunting applications grew from 558,000 in 15 to 705,000 in 21. So in a 6-year span, increased 50 to 70,000 applicants of each of the past 3 years. So there's this huge increase of interest in hunting in Colorado.
Yeah.
So
Thank you, Joe Rogan. You don't know, you don't listen to Joe Rogan?
no,
Joe Rogan is probably the most popular man the most listened to on a regular basis in the
terms
country.
of podcasts, I know he's a podcaster, and I know
it's like the biggest podcast ever.
Oh.
Ever. I mean, he breaks records all the time, and so many dudes listen to his podcast.
And I'm look, truth be told, I'm not trying to play dumb about Joe Rogan. I know who Joe Rogan is, and I used to listen to his podcast. I got disenchanted with the lack of vetting of good information.
Sure.
And this is before COVID.
Oh,
It has
yeah.
nothing to do with
Yeah.
COVID. There were certain things that he'd be too contradictory in his positions with different guests. And I'm okay with having open-minded to different guests and different ideas, but it was the shifting of position as if he was the authority, and it was weird. So it's not that I have anything against him.
Yeah.
I just didn't appreciate the way he went about
I'm not saying I'm
gathering
a
and presenting
fan.
information.
I'm not saying I'm a fan. I'm just saying he exists, and
Correct.
millions of dudes listen to him.
Yes.
And he has recently become very fond of archery elk.
Okay.
And it's not just him. It's the Elk Season Podcast that's also ruining elk hunting. Anybody that promotes it is ruining it by bringing more people to the sport.
Right.
But we want to onboard people to the sport in the right way.
To help provide advocating for the sport, but also for active management of the sport, so that we continue to have the conservation we need in place to have the opportunities and the things that we're currently enjoying.
So I would blame. I would just say that part of this is from people like Joe Rogan, who love archery elk and talk about it and have a huge audience. Am I jealous of his audience? Maybe a little. Maybe, a few million bucks, I could use. But whatever.
I think I have somehow a non-deleted previous
topic.
I went in and deleted everything when I saw it, so it has something to do with Idaho snowpack levels 2/3 or 3/4 of normal.
No, that just happened. We forgot to talk about this. We forgot to talk about this when we were making our notes. Now that you say it, I'm like, that was this week, because we had some really, really big storms move in this week.
Yeah.
And I was really encouraged because we got some good storms around Christmas, and it feels like nothing since then.
Right.
And we need a lot more water out west.
Yes, we do.
A lot.
Last year was kind of unnerving for me.
Yeah.
Up where we hunt, and it's just like...
Yeah.
It rained like 2 days before we got up there, and so places that were dry had trickles of water in them, but it was still... It was only because of the weather that came through, and not the constant that usually is there.
So it's very concerning. The drought out west is very concerning, especially wherever you live, because if you live west of the Mississippi, it's an issue. Water is an issue, and New Mexico, Arizona, the Rocky Mountain states are in a bind. Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, the Colorado.
Yeah,
and even up here in Idaho, Wyoming, and Montana. So it's really dry, and we need every bit of water we can get.
So anybody here in Twin Falls, Idaho, who's on pressured irrigation, commonly have their water on by now.
Yep,
but it's been pushed off to the next week or two.
Yeah.
So hopefully my changes, because I had to fix some things. Hopefully I did a good job.
Yeah.
With my sprinkler system. Sorry.
Yeah.
Not to be cryptic. I had to do some major repairs to my sprinkler system since it was installed last year, and I
don't know if it works yet.
I did internet research on that.
Has yet to be tested.
I'm anxious.
Isn't there a way you just run the garden hose out there and pressurize with that and test it?
I don't know, and I'm not doing that. I'm going to let the water come on, and I want catastrophic failure, baby.
Yeah.
I want to know, and I will fix it.
After I've built a couple more outbuildings.
Right.
Yeah, I want to ride on top of the line. I want to know.
Having opportunities to hunt is important. So segueing off of that comment I made, having opportunities, but having opportunities where elk need water to exist. So hopefully we get more
Very
water.
much, yeah.
But back to Wyoming, what does it say? 2.6 million acres of land, as well as 4,000 lake acres, 82 stream miles have become opened to more recreational outdoor activities, which is cool. So having that, and it's kind of funny. Ted Turner was once, I don't know if he still is, but was once the largest private landowner.
I think Bill Gates is now,
but he said that he was leaving a majority of his stuff to conservation.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. Having more and more millions and millions of acres, we need them. And there's a lot of private acres out there that man, I don't know. It's got to be tempting to just sell it and say, look at all my money. But
I don't know. I wish I had the money to buy and conserve
and give.
Alabama hunter tags an 8-pointer. It's funny because there's like 5 points on one antler, and then 3 on the other. An 8-pointer that turns out to be a doe.
Yeah,
sort of. So this is a weird mutation on the sex chromosome. It happens in humans. In fact, I heard from a student in one of my classes when we were talking about the mutations in humans. They had learned about this mutation in terms of cattle because they were part of the one of the programs at the college that deals with animals. I can't remember if it was vet tech or whatnot, but there are these mutations that happen on sex chromosomes and in animals that leads to androgynous experiences or certain types of abnormal or non-typical developments. And
right.
So, it's kind of an interesting thing. And I came across this in Idaho. It was, I don't know why I bring this up still. I don't know why I'm hanging on to any emotion from it, but I once had a roommate that wanted to argue me that does don't grow horns or antlers.
Right.
And I was like,
right.
I
think that's maybe why I saved that pick, because I know
to help me go through my trauma.
I've had this conversation with you so many times, and I agree with you. But yeah, it exists.
It's not normal, but it can happen. And I guess I always was frustrated because of how intensely they were trying to fight back the argument and not listen in a reasonable way. And that was kind of the relationship with that individual. And I no ill feelings moving forward. It's just there were a few times where it's like, can you just listen to reason here?
Yeah. I've had that attitude before.
And that was before I was in college, and they were in college. So I kind of held them on a pedestal like, you're exploring these things. You should be a little more open-minded.
Yeah.
So college doesn't change some people's focus sometimes. Yeah, I don't know what it would take. I lost contact with that person for the most part. But other than
anyway, so a doe with antlers.
Yeah, doe with antlers. It happens.
That's why they're classified not in your reg book. They're not classified as doe or buck. They're classified as antlered or antlerless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but they were required to have evidence of sex.
Yes.
On carcass. So, I think the reason why that one in the 1990s came about is because he needed to have evidence of sex on the stuff, and so when he found that the evidence of sex didn't match what he thought he shot, he reported it.
That's a pretty glaring error.
Yeah.
That's a missing piece. Look at this big old buck. Time to go. Where's his unmentionables.
Right. So this next thing, I don't know. Wolverine running down the highway in Blackfeet County or Blackfeet country. And I don't know where exactly this is, but
I think that's Montana.
Oh, Montanica. Yeah, it's from the Montanica page.
Yeah, the eastern slopes of the Bob Marshall is Blackfoot country.
Oh man.
But we were talking about Wolverines.
Yeah.
I love the Wolverine. And especially because I'm a Red Dawn generation. Have you seen Red Dawn, the original Red Dawn with Patrick Swayze?
I know it exists, and I know it's Patrick Swayze, but I don't know the movie.
C. Thomas Howell, Patrick Swayze. Oh man, all-star cast. It was Generation. It was the Generation X movie. It was Generation X because Generation X was a generation unsupervised.
Okay.
Here, you got keys to a car. You got a gun. Go. Get out of here in high school. Yeah, go. And so here we have an invasion from Cuba and Russia, and all the high schoolers have to go off on their own and sort of start this army.
Yeah.
And we're in high school, and we're like, yeah, that sounds awesome, right? And it was a tragic movie.
Yeah,
it was awful. I mean, one of the greatest things about the original Red Dawn, so many original members died. I mean, it was not typical Hollywood happy ending.
Spoiler alert.
It was not a happy ending. It was fantastic ending. It sucked. War is terrible.
Yes, it is.
Anyways, they were the Wolverines.
Okay.
They were the Wolverines. Scrappy and creative and resourceful and full of energy. And they would write Wolverines on these old Russian tanks. Like, we did this. We did this. And this week in the war in Ukraine, somebody etched out Wolverines on a Russian tank.
Nice.
And it was like,
oh, wait.
Oh, beautiful.
Somebody etched it out?
Somebody painted it. Somebody painted Wolverines on the side of a Russian tank, just like from Red Dawn.
I need context here. Was the tank still part of the Russian army, or had it been taken over, or was it exploded? What?
It was burned to the ground.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I needed.
Yeah, that was... Yeah.
I needed
the rest
context.
of the symbology was there.
Okay.
From Red Dawn. It was really great.
Because if it's a Russian army soldier who's doing that, that means something different to me than if it's...
Yeah,
so
I got you.
I apologize. I just needed context.
No, it was in context of the film. And so the Wolverines, that was just a very, very fun movie, not very practical. Maybe it was in the 80s. I mean, literally they leave high school and they got bows and arrows and camping equipment. And it looked like a lot of fun when I was in high school.
I've been told I should give that one a watch. I haven't watched it.
Oh, it's sad.
So
it's hard to take. Yeah,
this last thing is it's an image, and oh my gosh, it's from the archives is what it says. A mountain lion and a ram fell off a cliff onto this highway to their death.
Yeah.
And they were in a brutal exchange. Of course, they brutally died. nature, it happens. The road being there or not wouldn't have mattered. They'd have died. But I think what is really magical about this cougar was so hungry that it still didn't let go of the tuft of hair in its mouth as it's laying dead on this asphalt across from this ram. It's like, I just wanted dinner.
I've seen attacks. I've seen footage of attacks like that. When a cat attacks either a goat or a sheep, and they tumble down the mountain together.
Yeah.
Oh, that is dangerous. That is for everybody.
Yeah.
But starving is more dangerous.
Yeah.
And not getting away, or getting away is more dangerous. Not getting away is more dangerous. And so they both will take the tumble versus take the definitive die.
Yeah.
And that's awful. It's an awful thing to. Nature is cruel.
Nature is pretty cruel.
Nature is brutal. We got nice broadheads. They're sharp.
Yeah.
We practice our bow every year.
Somewhere.
At least.
We didn't get a chance to do that yesterday. Weather was not necessarily being friendly, so cautiously we postponed our little adventure we were supposed to come back and talk about. But that's okay. I think it was probably for the better.
When I worked on the farm, we all talked about how it always got below freezing at least one night in June.
Really?
Every June.
Okay.
And when you're not growing plants outside, the first couple weeks of June, you don't think about it.
Yeah.
But we did, and we thought about it, and so yeah, it feels like a long winter because we never had all those false springs that we normally have during winter. But I think spring's right on track. It's a beautiful day today.
Yeah, gorgeous day.
And we're looking at 70 on Monday.
Yeah, we're headed
tomorrow,
in that spring direction. And we planted our potatoes yesterday.
Yeah.
And we have garlic coming up in our garden. We've got some onions we need to plant.
Nice.
And so paid $10 for onions. We have a few different varieties, and there's clusters of onions in these packages. So if you think about how much an onion costs, about roughly just under $1 per onion, we're saving some money on onions once we get them to maturity. So
that means I need a lime tree pretty bad. Margaritas are not free, and limes are like $1 a piece, and I need one lime per margarita.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm making them good, I've slowed down on the margaritas.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so what we have left is just simply trail tales, or however you want to frame that. Or I don't have anything particular in mind in terms of things going on the trail, other than I'm looking forward to getting out there. It's starting to warm up. You're starting to see the season giving us an opportunity to open the door to the wilderness and get out there. So I'm more interested in that next excursion, wherever and however I can get to it, as long as weather permits.
Weather permitting. I know I shared the story of the first bull elk I ever took a shot at. And you can see that place I shot at him from Interstate 15.
Yeah.
Just coming out of Boulder. And I was on Interstate 15 just coming out of Boulder. And of course, everybody in the car needs to stop whatever they're doing and hear about the first time Dad shot at a bull elk. And I got the cruise set at 80, and I'm winding up this mountain. And my wife is like, "Just watch the road, honey. We can see the hill from here." But I'm trying to find the tree, right? Because it's not just there's a hillside, and it's mostly not trees, but there's a few trees. I'm like, not that tree, this tree right there. Anyway, so that's my trail, my tale from the trail this year. Or this week is having to force my family to listen to my elk stories is part of being an elk hunter.
Yeah. I will follow up something that we started the show with, though, and that is lighted or lit knocks. So if those are legal, I'm really interested in that, because the whole idea of being a bow hunter is you have to follow your shot. And this to me is an invaluable opportunity. If this is a new if this really is true,
it looks like it's coming through. Yeah, maybe the Fish and Game hasn't reported on it yet because the law hasn't been signed and moved forward.
So I'm interested in having that aspect of being able to follow it better. When I think about the shots I've taken in the field, it'll make it clear to me where the error was in how I was shooting.
Yeah.
And so
to have an idea too of how an arrow travels.
Correct.
When you're making a prediction through sticks and trees, you're like, how is this arrow going to travel?
Right.
And if you have a better idea of how it's going to travel, you can know whether or not that shot's going to be effective or not.
Yeah.
Which is important.
So for me, I'm interested in having a better look at that and making some purchases to get some knocks.
Yeah, same here.
So,
same here.
Other than that, I think that's it for today.
That's the Elk Season Podcast. Thanks everybody.
Cheers
for listening. If you listened
Be
or
well.
if you watched or whatever,
Stay awesome.
See you next week.
Cheers.
Bye.